And so I knew for me personally, I needed to feel very passionately about what the companies were doing for me to stay engaged.
Welcome to She Invests. Join us every week for conversations focused on the growing number of female angel investors, the real unicorns. You'll hear from existing female angel investors, VCs, and fund managers on their investment thesis. From deal flow to exits, they will share the best practices that contribute to their success. Female angel investors will be equipped with the tools and resources to confidently activate their capital in order to make an impact in their community and the global economy. With your host, active angel investor and founder of Hera Angels, Dr. Silvia Ma.
I am honored to have Alicia Robb on the podcast because she is really moving and shaking in the angel investment world. She is an author, she is an academic, she is a researcher, she is an active angel investor and VC. So we're so excited to have Alicia Robb on this podcast this morning. And she is a founder and CEO of Nextwave, which provides early stage financing and advising for young firms. She is also a visiting scholar with the University of California in Berkeley and the University of Colorado at Boulder. She was previously a senior fellow with the Kauffman Foundation for more than a decade and currently does economic consulting for a variety of public and private entities. She's just amazing. And I'm excited to have you on the call. Thank you, Alicia, for being on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So we can go on and on about your bio, but it's so amazing what you've been able to accomplish. The books that you have written are amazing. I know as an angel investor myself, I go back and read them over and over again to find out more information about how to be a better angel investor. So I just want to know a little bit more about your story. I know that you had a great Forbes article about you becoming a VC on August 14th, 2015. Want to know more about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's titled How I Became a Venture Capitalist. You know, I was doing research with one of my co-authors, Susan Coleman. We were writing a follow-up book to our first book that we did on financing strategies for women-owned businesses called A Rising Tide. This new book was called Nextwave, focusing on high-growth entrepreneurship financing strategies for women, but also looking at the gender gap on the investor side, because they're very much related. The gender gap in high growth entrepreneurship, as well as the gender gap on the investor side. And what came out of that was really why we don't see more women angel investors. In doing research with the data, as well as doing interviews with a variety of strategic players in the field and angel investing in VC, what we came up with was people aren't aware of angel investing as an asset class. They don't know that they could possibly do it. They don't know other angel investors. They don't see deal flow. They don't know how, and they're risk averse to making that first large investment. Failure rates for startups is quite high, and so a lot of startups actually fail. And so if you are thinking about putting a lot of money into a startup, it's pretty daunting to think that half of firms fail by the time 5 or 10 years goes down the road. So you might lose your entire investment. So that risk aversion for not making that first investment is what keeps, I think, a lot of people from doing angel investing. So when I looked at the landscape of what was out there in terms of helping new angel investors invest, I didn't see anyone really tackling that one issue of that first large investment. And so that's how I decided to design a program or a fund that really got over all of those barriers for angel investing by doing a learning by doing fund where you would make one investment, but it would get diversified across a portfolio of companies. And also by bringing women together into a fund and having some experienced angels mentor the new and emerging angels. You could learn by doing, you could get mentored. I was at Kauffman and they sponsored the education and training piece. And so at the end of the day, after a year or so has gone by, you've been mentored, you've gotten education and training, you've been through due diligence on a number of companies, you've made, 6 to 10 investments, and so you then are prepared to go out and be active in angel investing. That was the plan.
That was awesome. I remember talking to you at the Angel Capital Association meeting in San Diego and saying, wow, we would love to have this fund. And what do you think? And what are you trying to do? So I really love that you just looked at the landscape and actually acted on creating this fund and really focusing in on that early stage of how do I make that first investment? So how do the mentors at the Rising Tide Fund really help those rising angel investors make those successful decisions?
So during the pilot, we did 2 pilots, one in the United States and one in Europe, with the same model, 9 experienced angels that mentored the 90 and the education and training piece alongside of that. So the 9 were on all of the company screening calls as well as these monthly Ask Me Anything sessions, so that the 90 could watch the company screenings, hear the questions that the leads were asking the companies as they finished their presentations, and then that whole dialogue about strengths and weaknesses and so forth. And then each month we also had a few of the leads on an Ask Me Anything session where people could ask whatever questions they wanted about the companies, about the due diligence process, about the education and training pieces. And so they, could ask specific questions about, the companies or what they were reading and learning from the education piece.
Yeah, and you talked about that risk aversion in that earlier segment. Is that what was the biggest red flag that those early angel investors had? In that, is it risk aversion? Is it not knowing? Is it not having the industry's background? What were those things that came up over and over again that those early angels had questions about?
Well, there's a few things. Yeah. Feeling comfortable investing in something you don't know. And so, in that sense, investing with a group and having colleagues that actually have that expertise is very important, because I always tell early or new angel investors, invest in what you know and invest in what you're passionate about. The benefit of having a group of investors is that there is this wisdom and this depth of knowledge across a bunch of different industries within the group itself. If you're investing on your own, it would be hard to put together a diversified portfolio across a bunch of different industries because you don't have that industry expertise. But by doing the fund with other investors, the depth of knowledge across a variety of industries is there for you. I think that the industry expertise is important. And then another big thing is just the market. Is the market big enough? Is this company going to actually be able to scale to a point where they're going to be an attractive target for acquisition by another company? Because the only way we get money back as angel investors typically is if a company goes public through an IPO or they get acquired. Since there are so few IPOs, the most common exit is being acquired. So if there's not a big enough market for you to scale as an entrepreneur to become a big enough company to be an acquisition target, then there is no exit possibility for you.
That's awesome. And then also the existing angel investors that were mentors, they must have gotten something out of this as well.
They did, yeah, because I think a lot of the investors in the pilot hadn't invested together before. One of the things we did was build a geographically diverse set of leads, both in US and Europe. And so a lot of them had never invested together. So anytime you invest with someone new, you learn from their perspective and their models and methods and so forth. So I think everybody gained something, even if they were very experienced.
So yeah, that collective environment really allowed for those angel investors who were seasoned be able to find their tribe. And then the ones that are aspiring, hey, I need to learn from those that have already invested and learn how to do it the right way the first time, Well,
that was one of the impetus of what was one impetus for the fund, because when I was interviewing the angel investors for the book and asking what recommendations for new investors, they were saying all these things that would have saved me, myself, time, energy, money, when I first started investing, and was so that I could have prevented mistakes that I made as an early angel investor, and the mistakes that they made. And so my thought was, why can't we tell new angel investors before they make those mistakes how to not make those mistakes and learn from people who have gone before them?
I love that, and have a rising tide of female angel investors. So kind of going back to your history, how did you become an angel investor, and can you talk a little bit about your portfolio of any of the startups that are success stories?
Sure. I started getting into angel investing from the research side. As you said, I'm kind of an academic. I was a senior fellow with the Kauffman Foundation for more than a decade, and I was doing a lot of research on entrepreneurial finance. I started actually my career doing work in microfinance, which then led to small business finance for the Small Business Administration, and then entrepreneurial finance through the Federal Reserve Board and Kauffman. And at my time my time at Kauffman, I started looking at crowdfunding and equity investing, both on the angel side and the VC side. And I started actually investing through crowdfunding, first as rewards based and then through equity crowdfunding once the Jobs Act made that possible. And that's how I got into angel investing. So I've been investing probably 4 or 5 years now. I have about 48 investments. A lot of them are through funds. I'm part of both the pilot Rising Tide program in the US and in Europe. So I have 18 of my investments are through those. I'm part of a couple other funds as well. And then I have some crowdfunding investments and then some straight angel investments. So it's still pretty early. One thing you learn about angel investing is it's a long-term play. It's illiquid. So, you're looking at 5 to 10 years investments. So I've had one exit so far, which was a convertible note that actually didn't convert, so just paid back your principal and interest. Everyone is still alive except for one company so far. So I've had one wind down and one exit, and 46 ongoing investments that are still, going, thriving, and I expect some really good things from at least a few of them, if not more.
That's so exciting. I have ongoing investments too. So from angel to angel, how do you help those ones that are ongoing as the angel investor? I know mentoring is said over and over again about how mentoring does play a part in the success of a startup. There's some research behind that that was talked about at the ACA meeting recently. How much do you mentor, and how much do you think that helps those startups really be successful?
So I think that's a really great question, because as I just said, I have 46 live investments. And so clearly I don't have enough hours in the day to be actively engaged in all of them. So the fund model allows us to bring a set of people. We have 99 women behind those investments. And, not everyone is going to be involved on a day-to-day, involved with the day-to-day operations, but we as a network can support these entrepreneurs that we invest in through providing help when they ask for them. I'm more involved, obviously, in my direct angel investments, with mentoring and helping with connections for those. I'm a passive investor in a few funds where I'm not involved at all with any of those investments, but I obviously rely on the managing partners of those funds to be very much in that support system of those entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. So mentoring and connections are the two things that I heard. Anything else that come up for you in any of those startups?
Well, related to connections is, we're doing early stage investing, and these companies are going to need follow-on financing as they grow and scale. And so connecting them to subsequent funders that are funding later stage deals is another way we can add value to those companies.
So that way of doing that as an angel, I see two ways that I've actually done it, and maybe there's more that I can learn from you. Is one is syndication, really syndicating if you're part of an angel group. I know you do mostly things with funds. And then the other thing is just connecting that entrepreneur to another angel investor or that bigger VC firm that they need that. What are the other ways that we can help those entrepreneurs really get that next bit of funding?
No, that's exactly how we do it. And in fact, we have a new initiative with the Angel Capital Association that is working to connect the funders across the life cycle of firms that are interested, funders that are interested in supporting women entrepreneurs. So we are mapping out the landscape of funders that want to support and invest in women-led companies so that depending on who you are, where you are, what kind of sector, what industry you're in, you will know exactly who the funders are at that stage in that location, and so forth. So we're hoping to do that both for women-led companies as well as impact companies, because my new fund is actually an impact fund, and so we want to do that same landscape analysis for impact companies as well.
I love that. So I think that going into that impact investing is really important because, in your book, you allude to the high growth or growth oriented women owned firms. And is that equal to impact investing or is it not? Can you break that down a little bit for me?
It's funny you ask that because how you define impact varies from group to group and person to person. For us, it is not enough to just be a women-led company to be impact. That's not the impact screen that we're using. We're actually using the general term having a significant positive impact on people, planet, and communities. So being women-led is not enough. So of the companies that we did with the pilot, we made 10 investments. 9 had women on the founding team, 6 had women CEOs, 3 had minority CEOs. Only about 6 of them would have been impact by the definition of the Nextwave Impact Fund. So we're not, the screen for just women or minority led is not enough for us to reach the impact threshold. Although it is for some groups, but not for our fund.
Yeah, and do you find that women are more apt to become part of that fund that is part of an impact investing fund? Do you have males that also are part of that fund? How does that all work?
Yeah, so one of the things I came away with after the pilot funds and programs in the United States and Europe was that I wasn't that excited about some of the companies and what they did. And so I knew for me personally, I needed to feel very passionately about what the companies were doing for me to stay engaged and motivated. If I was going to put my time, money, and energy behind something, I really wanted to just focus on companies that I felt were making a positive, significant contribution to our world. I think that's needed more now than ever. And I think that resonated with a lot of women in the pilot funds. You mentioned the tribe. I feel like I've found the tribe in that a lot of the women felt very similar to how I did with the kinds of companies we invested in. I think they'll give us a great return, but not necessarily companies that I feel passionately about what they're doing. And so I found a tribe of women who really feel passionately about impact, about women's empowerment, and about the global picture and what role we play in that.
That's amazing. I love that because I think that's one of the things that when we were going back to why women don't invest is that they don't know why they need to invest or they don't know how to invest. And that's really solidifying the why, because women do want to make an impact, it seems like, and we want to change the world. And this is one way that we can, as angel investors, is to impact that way by investing in startups that do have an impact. And do you find that that's the reason why people really join the fund and become part of your awesome tribe?
Exactly. The impact piece really resonates with folks. And I think impact investing is relatively new. And I think there's not enough people that are convinced yet that you can actually make money while doing good. And I want to be one more piece of evidence that you can have a financial return as well as have a social return. And you can do both. You can do well by doing good and investing in companies doing good things.
That's awesome. I believe wholeheartedly as well. And does that kind of decrease also the risk aversion for some of the female angels as well?
I think so. Yeah, they're willing to take on more risk because the social impact is such that they're willing to take that risk.
A lot of women want to do philanthropy, and that's awesome. There's a place for that, but there's also a place for impact investing. And that's where I think that what you're doing is so amazing and so worth it, that let's kind of dive into that and make sure that we have a great definition about what impact investing is that will bring more people into the Nextwave Impact Fund.
Well, this came up at the Angel Capital Association of people asking if we would take concessionary returns to achieve impact. And I want to really clearly delineate philanthropy from impact investing. I really believe you can do well by investing in companies doing good things. And I don't think that you need to have a trade-off. So I do not want to use philanthropic dollars for impact investing, because I think if we can show the impact investing can offer a financial return that's attractive, we're going to bring in a lot more capital into this asset class. Is once you blur the lines with philanthropy, then you're limiting the amount of money that you can actually bring into impact investing. And I don't think we need to muddle it. There's a place for philanthropy and there's a place for investing, and impact investing needs to show that we can offer attractive financial returns to investors.
That's awesome. I think that's beautifully said. So thank you for that, because I needed a little bit of clarity and just understanding what impact investing is, especially for the listeners. So wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that.
And related to that, I mean, one of the things we did was to separate out philanthropy. So we did set up the Nextwave Foundation, which will take philanthropic dollars so that we can supplement the investing by doing capacity building for both investors and entrepreneurs, mainly in emerging markets, but possibly also in the United States, so that there is a delineation between philanthropy and investing. We are, as a managing partner of the Nextwave Impact Fund, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the investors to do my best to achieve financial returns that are attractive.
Yeah, so you bring up a great point, because that's something that really has called me to what you're doing is your work internationally. So I know that you are really passionate about making an impact in the developing world. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done recently and how people can help you if possible?
Sure. I've been involved since I was 15, actually, in emerging markets. I got involved in Central America in the 80s and and broadened to Africa, India, and the rest of the world over the last 20, 25 years. I started a nonprofit called Foundation for Sustainable Development back in 1995. That partnered with partners with grassroots organizations across the developing world to help them build sustainable community development initiatives. So as I mentioned, I got into entrepreneurial finance through microfinance. I did my master's in microfinance, but I've been involved in emerging markets for a long time now. We're working now in trying to help women in Africa build angel groups and syndicates in Africa. I'm going to Vietnam in August to both work with trainers for angel investing, as well as helping some programs around supporting women's entrepreneurship. So I think there's a lot of interest in the lead investors in the new Nextwave Impact Fund that have been working internationally across Africa and Asia and the Middle East, as well as Latin America. And we're all very committed to helping both women entrepreneurs scale, but also getting more women involved in the entrepreneurial ecosystems as advisors, mentors, investors, board members.
So you're all over the place, which is awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah, I've been following a group in the Middle East, Womena, and they've been kind of interesting to follow and see how they have grown their angel group. So it's kind of interesting to see how this is being played out in the world.
Yeah, one of our lead investors, Heather Henyon, she's American, but she lives in Dubai. She's actually helped that group with their trainings as well. So she's actually based there.
I love that because I think one of the things that in your book you really go through, the Nextwave book, is that it's about education and it's about prior experience. So we've talked a little bit about prior experience in that educational piece. We really need to get into that global market and educate those angel investors.
Yeah, and there's this growing interest. As I said, I'm going to Vietnam in August because there's, groups of people who are really interested in helping the startups in their ecosystems scale by both investing their human capital as well as their financial capital and helping them do that and finding markets as one way to do that.
Yeah, and I love how that dovetails into research that's already been done. You put it into your book back in 2007 by Becker, Blease, and Soul, that women entrepreneurs were somewhat more likely to seek and receive funding from women angels. So I love how you're really working in that global market, saying, hey, we need to actually raise a number of angel investors so that entrepreneurs can actually get funded.
Right, and that's both here in the U.S. and Europe, as well as emerging markets. They call the term homophily. You like to hang out with people like you. You like to start companies with people like you. You like to invest in companies that are started by people like you. And so, part of the reason why we see so much of the venture capital going to white males is because most of the venture capitalists are white males.
And overseas and in developing economies, what do you see there? The same sort of homophily?
Definitely. Yeah, you see that everywhere. And I think since angel investing is so new to so many of these emerging markets, being inclusive from the get-go rather than just focusing on just women, what we're trying to do is just build angel investing, building the knowledge of angel investing or angel investment as an asset class, and just bringing women in from the get-go rather than just targeting women. So just trying to build angel investing for both sexes, but also, just being inclusive from the start.
Yeah, I'm flipping back and forth on these pages in your book. And also, it's like you said in your book, too, is that if you have a token woman in an angel group, that she doesn't really do much. She might not have the confidence to invest. But if you have an inclusive group that has women and men having equal percentages in that group, and even diversity, Latinos and African Americans in those same angel groups, they actually will invest in the same type of entrepreneur that they're looking at.
Right. Having one woman or just one minority is not enough to really create a inclusive, diverse group. And so really building diversity as a whole is important.
I love that. And so they're building that investment thesis from the get-go, and you're helping that. So just amazing. You have really made an impact in the angel world in the United States and overseas. It's just amazing.
Well, I struggle with the diversity piece though here in the United States. When I look at our lead investors, it's a pretty white crowd. How building diversity is challenging because you build from your networks, and if your network's not that diverse, then that's a challenge. And so I struggle with how to bring more diversity into our own fund.
Yeah, and I think that if we have a mandate and or a passion around diversity, I think that creates better communication and better networks to be able to invest in those types of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because I think it's down to about 4%, right, of angel investors are Latina women, or is it 4% is Latinos in the angel investment world?
I would be surprised if 4% were women, Latinas. I think it would be Latinos. I think it would be even smaller if you look at just women that are Latinas. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then looking at percentages and stuff like that, where are we at in the right now in 2017, if we can estimate, of how many female angel investors are in the United States?
Well, the data unfortunately aren't great. We certainly are doing better than venture capitalists, but we're not even up to a quarter of the angel investors. And certainly, once you get to the minority groups, it's even smaller. So we still have a long way to go to reach parity. But I am actually excited and hopeful because every time I go to a Angel Capital Summit each year, I see the numbers of women growing and growing, and so we're not, although we're not at parity, I feel like we are making progress, and so that's encouraging, and I think it's reinforcing. When you're not the only woman in the room, it's a much more welcoming place to be, and so I think as we have more women, it's just going to draw in more women.
Yeah, I know that I'm still sometimes the only woman in the room with some syndication meetings and some meetings of only angel investors. So I know the parity is still there, but we're all working towards some kind of balance, let's say. And I know that Rising Tide Fund and the Nextwave Impact Fund has made such great strides on that educational piece of female angel investors to be able to have that confidence to invest. What other companies or other institutions have helped you along the way to increase the number of female angel investors?
Well, during my time with the Small Business Administration and the Federal Reserve Board, and then with Kaufman, I've gotten to experience and get exposed to so many different groups that are doing, wonderful things and working in this space. Hera Hub and Hera Ventures and the fund and and the angels is, just one example of many that are really trying to move the needle.
Yeah, I think that also, the reason why we have Hera Angels and Hera Fund is because we're saying, look, we want to help our local economy, our local female entrepreneurs rise up, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of alluded at the very beginning about geographical constituents across the United States, and you're trying to pull them together. Have you found that there are, it's punctuated throughout the United States, and we're seeing a rising tide?
Oh, definitely. I mean, look at 37 Angels in New York, or Jump Fund in Tennessee, or Sophia Fund in Minnesota, or True Wealth Partners in Texas. Now I live in Colorado, and we have started a women investor network as part of the Rockies Venture Club, which is the main angel group in Colorado. And more often than not, I was the only woman in the room every month during the company pitches that we would have. But a woman Denver has started the Women Investor Network, and I'm working with the group in Boulder, and we're trying to get more women involved in angel investing locally and supporting women entrepreneurs. Remarkably, the Rockies Venture Club's portfolio has a much higher percentage of women-led companies than the national average. But I would think with even more women being investors, we would see even a greater share. So I think part of what we're trying to do with the Nextwave Fund and other initiatives, as the one I mentioned earlier about mapping the landscape of funders that are interested in supporting women-led companies, is to build these bridges across the different groups working in the United States locally, so that there's a national network.
I love that. I know that I've reached out to all that you had mentioned, and also WingPact and Seattle Women's Impact Fund up in Seattle, and they're all so collaborative. And I think that that's what I see on women angel groups and women funds, that they feel like they're part of a collective and they really want to network. And how you said at the beginning too, is that how you help your startups is to connect them to the next level of finance. And that's something that I see that is a positive about female angel investors, that they are more, I feel like they're more collaborative. I can call them and let them know what we're doing and hear what they have, what their successes are.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of SheEO, which is started in Canada 2 years ago. I know they're coming to San Diego in a few months to talk about building a chapter there. But, look, the financial models are broken, and we need to find new and innovative ways to get more earlier stage companies funded and more diverse companies funded, and different models, and we need to try different things, and we really need to think outside the box. So I think, helping each other learn from each other's experiences and sharing best practices is the way forward, and that's collaborative, not competition.
Exactly. I'm so glad you mentioned actually CEO. Vicki Saunders will be at the Hera Venture Summit on September 16th as a keynote. So we're very, very excited and honored to have her kicking off our day.
Oh, she's great. So the CEO activators are those that invest in the CEO model. And so I was an activator in the first Canadian fund, and then the US one from this last year. And I've just reactivated for 2017. And I'm super excited about her model and her, unique way of looking at how to get more financial capital and human capital to women-led companies. So it's great that she's going to be at the summit.
Yeah, we're very blessed and honored to have her. So very exciting. So we're almost out of time. And do you have any closing comments? How do the people get in contact with you? And then I have 4 more questions that are rapid fire, but I wanted to give you the floor to close us out.
Well, our website is Nextwave Impact. Our Twitter feed is Nextwave Network. We're also on Facebook. And I'm just Alicia at nextwaveimpact.com.
And then where can we get your wonderful books? Because I reference them all the time.
Well, you can get them on Amazon or Stanford University Press. I'm excited to... well, I can't say it's for sure, but it looks like Stanford is going to do another book that Susan Coleman, Marcia Dawood, and I will be writing on angel investing, Stanford's equivalent of angel investing for dummies. So I'm not sure what the title is yet, but we're working on the final book proposal, and we're going through the final iterations of having a book contract for that book. So that'll come out probably in another year. But in the meantime, the others can be found on Amazon or Stanford University Press.
I'm so excited because I always reference, and I have it right in front of me. The Nextwave is Alicia Robb with the co-author of Susan Coleman. So get your book today and get informed. There's great data, just amazing amount of data that entrepreneurs and angel investors can use to really solidify their startup success, and also for angels to know what to do and how to do it.
And we are in the midst of putting all of that on Nextwave Impact, those resources from the appendices. So if you go to Nextwave Impact, we will be continuing to build out the education and resource pages of that website. So.
Well, I'm going to be looking forward to that. I will be the first one to download anything that's up there. So thank you, Alicia. I have 4 rapid fire questions that I ask all of the wonderful ladies on the podcast. The first one is, what is your favorite angel investing resource?
Probably the Angel Capital Association's resource page. Hopefully, Nextwave Impact's resource page will be equally helpful when we're finished with it. But the Angel Capital Association has a ton of information and resources for people who, both entrepreneurs and angel investors.
Thank you. And what's your favorite book?
I'm assuming you mean generally and not just about angel investing. I think the best book I've read lately is Sapiens, about the history of humankind.
I love that. And who has been a major influence in your life?
Well, Gandhi is probably one of my favorite influences.
No, that's amazing. So what does abundance mindset mean to you?
I think we should really remember how amazingly privileged and how lucky we all are to live in the time and age that we do and have the resources that we do have. And so just being grateful for what we have and being able to share that and give back so that others have similar opportunities.
I love that, because that really kind of goes into that advice that you gave at the beginning, is for any angel, do what you're passionate about. And definitely your impact fund is exactly that you just mentioned. So thank you for being on the podcast. I have had an amazing time with you. We've had some great nuggets of information. So thank you, Alicia, for being on this podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing all that you do.
We are honored that Alicia was able to give of her time to the She Invest podcast. We talked about the gender gap. We talked about how to take action, about the dearth of women in venture finance and angel investing. We talked about what are the female angel groups across the United States that are making an impact, and the difference between philanthropy and impact investing. So really great nuggets for both the aspiring angel investor and also for the angel investor who has been doing this for a while. And one thing that she found with having a type of structure in the Rising Tide Fund of 9 mentors who mentor 90 of the women who are part of the Rising Tide Fund is that the mentors, even though they might have been investors for a while and investing in their own expertise and in their own geographical locations, 2 things came out. One is that they never invested together. So they learned a lot about what it means to be an investor in their ecosystems. They learned how to be collaborative. They learned how to be better mentors to other angel investors. And also, they had never invested as a group. So all of those parts of that puzzle of creating the next wave of female angel investors by collaborating with investors who are experts in their fields and in their locations and in their ecosystems, they really learn to work together collaboratively. And for those investors that are waiting for their startups to get acquired or go IPO, Alicia gave 2 great nuggets of information. One is mentor them, and number 2 is really network and connect them to the next level finance that they would need. That's how you're going to make that successful exit a possibility for you and the entrepreneur. So again, I loved having Alicia Robb, the CEO of Nextwave Ventures, on the podcast. She is an incredible author, academic, researcher, and activist for female angel investors. Thank you for listening to and subscribing to the She Invest podcast. Go on over to sheinvest.com for the full show notes for this episode, as well as any resources, websites, and opportunities mentioned during the show. Sign up for the sheinvest.com newsletter to learn about events like our annual Hera Venture Summit during the month of September and our She Invests monthly investor circles. Thank you for your time, talent, and treasure.